It's time for the No Nonsense Roundtable. Insights to capture your imagination from people you know and people you'd like to know about. Each week, a different guest from a different walk of life. Now, here is the host of the No Nonsense Roundtable, Dom Genova.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host, every Saturday, 10 to 11, right here on News Radio Wham 1180. And I have never done this before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have, a part two conversation now with Mr. Gene Cornish and his best bud here in Rochester, Mr. Pat Proietti. And the two of you gentlemen are on the phone with me now. And good morning and welcome to the show again.
Good to be here.
Good morning, Dom.
Okay. So we're having another show because, first of all, the first show was very good and people gave it some really good good reviews, and there's so much more to talk about. And in particular, you two have been friends for 50 or 60 years, and Pat was asked to give the induction speech to Gene's induction into the Rochester Music Hall of Fame. And we were talking about it on the last show, and Pat was saying some things about, this and the uniforms they had, or the costumes or whatever, the dress that they had, and how they played and why Gene was so good with the band and whatever. And and when I heard this, when I saw this online on a YouTube, I was just bowled over by your performance, Pat. I mean, it was fantastic. This is like maybe 4 or 5 minutes of stand-up comedy that's as good as anything, and it tells a story. So for this first segment now, I am going to play that for everybody so they can hear exactly how good it was.
And now to induct Gene Cornish, we have a Rochester businessman and musician and childhood friend of Gene's, Pat Proietti, who will also introduce you to a very special guest who's here tonight. Please welcome Pat Proietti.
Before I begin, I would like to say thank you to Carl Laporta and Bruce Pilato. They're the brains behind this, and they've made Rochester a very happy place tonight. I am proud to present for my lifelong friend, Gene Cornish. I'm the first presenter. Felix Cavalieri will take it the rest of the way. I'm going to take you from the Franklin days of 1958 to about 1964, New York City, the Peppermint Lounge. And from there, Felix will tell you all about the Rascal years. My presentation involves seriousness and it involves humor, and it's because our group had a lot of fun and a lot of funny times as well. The success of Gene Cornish is something that it's a foregone conclusion. He knew he was going to be here on this stage 50 years ago. He's always had that kind of confidence. All the cliches, he worked hard, he had a goal, and he worked hard to achieve that goal. Those don't matter. I have a personal observation. The reason he was successful is his entire musical career. He surrounded himself with bright, talented, good-looking Italians. Did you happen to notice? There was Mancini, Proietti, Cavalieri, Danelli, Brigatti, Sid Bernstein. Sid Bernstein was the Rascals' manager, and he was also the Beatles' manager. And if my theory's correct, he may even be half Italian. The name of our group was Gene Cornish and the Satellites. This was around 1958. We had different bass players through the years, but the basis of the group was 3 of us. It was Gene, myself, our drummer was Phil Mancini. And when I tell you, this is the evolution of a rock and roll Hall of Famer. We started playing dances at Maplewood Park for $6 each. We played at the Volganera Hall on Bay Street. Between songs, we could hear the bocce balls hitting each other and the old Italian guys swearing at each other. Then we went to the depths, as low as it goes. we went to the Stardust Room at Edgerton Park. The reason it was, well, believe me, the reason it was so tough was because at least once a night, the lights would go off and the chairs would start flying. We learned how to duck chairs. It wasn't easy. But the one thing this group had was we had a presence. We were professional. Every group Gene Cornish ever had was in uniform. This group was no exception. We had sport jackets. They weren't Calvin Klein or anything like that. They were Beansies of Front Street. Anybody remember Beansies? The mayor doesn't know where Front Street is. Maggie wasn't even born yet. The plan was we would go to Beansies. Gene always wore either white or black. We wore whatever colored Beansy had 3 of. So we get there, and the only color he has is yellow, but not yellow jacket yellow. He had Where's the Dog yellow. And the problem was they were all the same size. They were 40D, 40 regular. 40D? Where do you get that from? 40 regular. Okay. How did she sign Beansy? I've been wondering how she's going to do that all night.
Now, Pat, the story is you did that with no rehearsal and no notes.
I was petrified.
Well, you were saying until you heard the first laugh, right? And then if you see the video, there's a light in your eyes when you got that first laugh, right?
Well, we had watched 8 other inductees into the Hall of Fame, and every person who did the presentation came up and read 3 or 4 pages of notes, and they made the presentation off of that. And we were the last ones on. We followed Chuck Mangione, and I'm sitting there, and I told Barbara, I said, I don't know what to do. Everyone is reading notes, and I don't have any notes. I'm just going to tell stories. And as I was going out on stage, Doug Gumledge said, "You have your notes?" I said, "No, I don't have any notes." But as soon as I started speaking, I heard the first laugh, and I was like a witch on wheels. I couldn't stop.
Now, Gene, you probably agree with me. This guy was as good as Stevie Van Zandt, right?
Oh, better.
Well, he had that personal touch of personally knowing you too. You guys have a great relationship over all these years. I mean, I have to be honest with you. I don't have any friends from my childhood. You guys were friends from high school, right?
We're friends for 60 years.
60 years.
Been a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, well, you two guys are going to be together on Monday when we have Gene Cornish Day at the Red Wings, and we're going to talk about that right after this break.
I'll be sure with you.
Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here today with Gene Cornish, inductee in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and his boyhood friend, Pat Proietti. And we were talking about the old days, and we were talking during the break about the first time that Gene was on Ed Sullivan. So, Gene, why don't you tell me that story?
Our first Ed Sullivan show was in '66, right after we had Good Lovin' was #1. Sid Bernstein, our manager, was good friends with Ed Sullivan, so he got us on the show. And when they set up the band in the studio, we weren't allowed to have our organ speaker or the Leslie or the guitar amp on stage for aesthetic reasons. So we had to put the guitar about 10, 15 feet away on the left and the organ speaker 10 feet on the right. There were no monitors at the time. It was pretty primitive, and we just played. We played to the drums and sang to the drums practically. I couldn't hear the guitar very well, and the organ was on the other side. and there were no VCRs, so thing wasn't taped. It was live, and we played Good Lovin', got a great reception from the audience in the theater, and I went home. And then my friends called me up. They said, "Holy cow, how's that?" I'm gonna give people that. Holy cow, what happened to your guitar? I said, "What are you talking about? You were so out of tune, it was terrible." I said, "What?" They said, "Yeah," and I couldn't go back to watch it. And I was devastated for a couple of days. And they wrote me about it. Finally, they told me they were just putting me on. Oh, I was mesmerized. I was just,
that was horrible. It was horrible. It's like telling you a relative died or something that didn't die. I mean, it's horrible.
My friends always played jokes on me like that. I remember Pat Proietti and drummer Phil Mancini playing practical jokes on me, and I was the brunt. I was known as the boss of the band, but the brunt of the jokes.
I have a funny feeling that you played a couple of jokes on some people yourself. No, nothing that you'll admit to, right?
No.
Oh, he was too serious.
I can't talk about that on the radio.
So you had another story about the House of Guitars, and you're there playing, and a couple of people with suits next to you, right?
Well, we were about to play the first show. It must have been the second time. I went there once a year, the day after Thanksgiving, and I would drive up, and at my own expense, pay for the hotel and pay for the drummer to come with me, and we would have no rehearsals. But anyway, it was just great players, Just before I'm ready to go on stage, Bruce Schambrecht, the owner, says to me, "Oh, a couple of guys over here want to talk to you for a minute." And I see two guys in suits, men in black. And I said, "Oh my, holy cow! I'm gonna get. Is this some kind of subpoena? Is this another lawsuit with the rascals? What's going on?" I wound up to be the Rochester Music Hall of Fame people, Bruce Pilata and Carl Laporte, I believe it was.
Uh-huh.
And they gave me an invitation to be honored to be in the Hall of Fame.
That's great. But what I don't understand is that they went to the House of Guitars dressed in suits to give you the news that you were being inducted into the Hall of Fame?
It was a formal invitation.
Okay.
And I called them Men in Black.
Men in Black. Yeah. So, like I said, you're going to spend a little time at the House of Guitars this weekend when you're here, right?
Actually, Tuesday.
Okay.
The 27th, I'm going to be there from 4 to 5, signing some books.
And you're going to be signing some books at the Red Wings game, right?
That's what I'm told. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have we're trying to do the best we can to make this a really memorable day for you, and hopefully the good Lord gives us good weather for this too, because it's the fall in Rochester, and you know what that's like. Now, one of the things that people really appreciated about hearing about you from the last show was your connection to the Red Wings. You said that your dad had a bait store, right?
My father had a sporting goods store.
Okay.
Hunting and fishing equipment, a block away from Red Wing Stadium, which was on Norton and Remington.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Red Wing Stadium at the time, and I remember as a kid, if I didn't go to a game and there was a home run hit, our apartment building shook.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God for Maury Silver, who saved the Red Wings for Rochester.
Yeah, well, we have a surprise for you because Pat suggested something that you would like, and we're having it made for you. It has to do with your proximity to the stadium. That's all I'm going to tell you. I don't like giving away surprises, but Pat came up with a really good idea about something that you might like, and I'm going to wait for Monday to give it to you. So it has to do with you being a neighbor of theirs.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward. I like surprises as long as they're nice surprises.
Well, yeah, I imagined you just said that you anticipated these guys with ties were serving you with subpoenas, so that would be one of those one of those surprises that you don't like.
Oh, no, that's okay.
We'll be right back to talk more after this.
In a world that's constantly changing, how can I be sure?
So we're here today with Gene Cornish, an inductee of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you may know Gene Cornish, but you certainly know the Rascals that he was a member of. And here are some songs for you, and they're Groovin', Been Lonely Too Long, Good Lovin', People Gotta Be Free, and How Can I Be Sure? Now listen to these, and I'm sure they're familiar to you.
On a Sunday afternoon, really, I've been lonely too long. I've been lonely too long. 1, 2, 3. Good love, good love, good love, good love. All the world over, so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. Listen, please, listen, that's the way it should be. Peace in the valley, people got to be free. How can I be sure? I really, really, really wanna know. I really wanna know. Hey.
I'm here with two wonderful musicians. One, Gene Cornish, who is a founding member of the Rascals, a fantastic group from back in the early 60s. They had a hell of an impact on the United States and music of America. And his longtime buddy, 60 years, Pat Proietti, who is also a musician and played with Pat and played with Gene in the old days. And some great old day stories. But you guys are going to be back together again on Monday because we are sponsoring the No Nonsense Roundtable with the Bob Johnson Dealer Group, and the Rochester Red Wings are honoring Gene with Gene Cornish Day on Monday at the Red Wings game. Gates open at 5 o'clock, and the tickets are on sale at the Red Wings office. And we're really excited to have you up here, Gene.
You know, I can't wait to get there. I'll be leaving Sunday morning, so I'll be there the night before, and we're going to have dinner at Pat's brother Whitey's restaurant, Friday's restaurant in Webster.
The thing about the last time we had you on the show was just a few weeks ago, is everybody really appreciates that you are a Rochester guy. You weren't born in Rochester, but you consider yourself a Rochester guy, and you've contributed to the culture of Rochester by everything you do, nationally known as you are an inspiration for other younger guitarists. And a lot of people have said how much you've given back to younger guitarists and people that are interested in music.
You know, it's always been a mission of mine to pay back. I've been blessed with every single success and blessings that I could possibly even hope for. So if I can share a moment with young musicians and budding musicians, it's important to give them the enthusiasm and support that they need.
And you have that reputation. I believe it or not, I was at church the other day, and a fella came up to me that I know. He says, and he met you someplace in New York at one time. You're playing at one of the clubs, and he says I was a young guy, and he was the nicest guy, and came up, and he didn't seem like he was all that. He was humble, and Gene, you have that reputation. Now, talking about that though, those are the days of. I think he saw you at the Barge down in Long Island. I mean, you guys had a long stint down there, right?
Yeah, we were there for the summer of '65, from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day. And we were fortunate enough to get our manager, Sid Bernstein, our record company, Atlantic Records, from that residency.
And the thing is, you were considered to be an East Coast band. I mean, I guess that was the thing that Stevie Van Zandt was trying to bring out, right?
Yeah, we were based out of New York City, New Jersey.
Now, you've got some great stories, but before we do that, let's talk about Gene Cornish now. Now, you're going to be here. We have some not prizes. We have some gifts for you that I think you'll like. We have some people with, let's say, personal messages for you on the scoreboard. And Pat's going to be here. Pat, do you intend on doing any more comedy when he's here on Monday?
No, I'm just going to sit back and relax. It's good. It's good to see that he's recognized by his hometown. He's given so much to Rochester, and in many ways, it was never repaid or wasn't repaid properly. But now he's getting a chance to receive the accolades he deserves.
Well, just like I said, you added to the culture of Rochester, and Rochester has so many great things about it. Now, when you're here, you're going to spend some time at the House of Guitars, right? I mean, you're a big fan of the House of Guitars, right?
Well, for 10 years going, Pat and I played at the House of Guitars with Danny LeBate, and Fred Costello played a couple of times with us. And what we would do, we do a free concert, and all you had to bring for admission is a coat or a couple of cans of food for the homeless.
People don't know. You mentioned Fred Costello. He's a great friend of the show, and he had a career years ago playing in Vegas and Tahoe and whatever. And he is the longest sports venue organist, I think, in the world. We're trying to find out right now if we can get him into the Guinness Book of Records. But Fred's much more than a ballpark organist. He's a great guy and a great musician.
Well, Fred also belongs in the Rochester Music Hall of Fame, without a doubt. Right, Pat?
You can say that again a couple of times, Gene. I've been lobbying for it for a while, but so far, no results.
Yeah. Amen to that, though. I mean, he's just a great guy. And talking about teaching people, he has a lot of students that have gone through his program. And like I said, a good guy. So we're about ready to head to another break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Gene Cornish Day, but also you have a tour coming up on November 19th. So we have a lot of things to talk about, and we're going to talk to everybody about that all after this. Welcome back to the No Nonsense Roundtable. So, Gene, you have a tour coming up, the Timepiece Tour, and you're going to be here on November 19th with Felix Cavalieri at the Kodak Center. But I'm also looking at this poster you have here. Look, this is amazing. St. George Theater, Staten Island, November 11th. College Street Music Hall, New Haven, Connecticut, November 12th. NYCB Theater at Westbury on November 13th. Mayo Performing Arts Center, Morristown, New Jersey, November 16th. Ocean Casino Resort, Atlantic City, November 18th. Kodak Center Theater, Rochester, which I just mentioned, November 19th. And FM Kirby Center, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, November 20th. You have to have some energy to do a schedule like that. I mean, I couldn't do that just visiting the places in that amount of time, Gene. Jeez.
Well, other than the trip from Atlantic City to Rochester, all the driving is just about 120 miles. Rochester is 300 miles, so we'll have to leave early in the morning.
Man, that's a heck of a schedule. Now, how many people arrange this for you? How many people do you have in your crew?
Well, we have 9 people on stage. We got 6 of us, Felix, myself, another guitar player, a keyboard player, bass player, drummer, and 3 horns. Man
alive. I mean, that is just amazing. Tickets are on sale now, I know, right?
Yes, they are.
And how do we get tickets? Ticketmaster, or I guess you can just go to the Kodak Center Theater site, right?
I'm not sure of that.
Okay. So why now? I mean, all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, we didn't know about this at the last time you were on the show, and it all came together, and you got this great tour. I mean, how far ahead of time do you have to plan a tour like this?
Well, you have to plan it months ahead of time. We had some legal situations versus Eddie Brigatti and Dino Danelli. The legal stuff was financed by Steve Van Zandt, which is a story I'd rather not tell.
Mm-hmm.
But we cleared that all up. We prevailed in the lawsuits, and now we're going to work.
Well, and if anybody wants to hear a little bit about this story, a lot of that story, Stevie Van Zandt thing, is in your book. And it's actually fascinating stuff because you had a tour way back when, and Stevie was backing it, and you go into some very interesting detail about the ins and outs.
Well, we did 11 months, 70 shows. We hadn't played together in 19 years. We rehearsed for 4 months. We put it together with a wonderful technology that was behind us, a 100-foot screen and visuals and recordings, speeches and stuff like that. And it worked out. We did 29 songs, 2 hours straight.
Wow.
That's quite a show.
One of the best shows we ever had was at the Auditorium Theater in Rochester. Ironically, it was my mother's birthday that day. My mom passed away 2006. But it was her birthday, and I told the story of how, as a young man, I came to the Auditorium Theater in 1958 to see the Everly Brothers and Buddy Holly and Duane Eddy, and went to the afternoon show and told my mom, this is what I want to be. I promise you that I'm going to buy you a Cadillac and a house with a swimming pool someday. And that was her birthday, and I announced that, and the audience went wild for that. Now, when I get to Rochester, ironically, November 19th is my mother's birthday again.
And ironically, it's my birthday, too.
There you go. Happy birthday in advance.
Why, thank
And
you.
mine is the week before.
Oh, there you go.
So let's talk a little bit more about Monday. You'll be in town on Sunday and at the game on Monday. There's still tickets available at the Red Wings box office. We're selling tickets through the Rochester Rotary for the benefit of the Sunshine Camp. There might be a couple of tickets left on that. I'm not so sure. People have to go to the Rotary to find out. And we're going to see you at the House of Guitars on Tuesday. Are you going to encourage people to come over there and sign some books over there too, right?
Yeah. House of Guitars is like a second home to me. So they were kind enough to be the first people to buy books, to sell books, and of course, to be the host for me and Pat's jam sessions.
Well, the other thing about the House of Guitars is that if anybody hasn't been there, I mean, the downstairs with the albums, a lot of people are getting back into old albums rather than the digital stuff. I mean, there's a certain quality to it. Don't you agree?
Well, they have about 1.5 million different titles there in the record department alone. They've got 10,000 guitars on display. They've got drums upstairs. They've got everything you need. They got Fred Costello's music school there.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, Carl Laporta gave me a tour of it a couple of months ago, and I was bowled over because I knew very little about music and the music business, but it's extraordinary. And then you're right, the number of guitars there. Now, let me ask you a question. Acoustic guitars and electric guitars, obviously, completely different. I mean, do you? What's your opinion of acoustic guitars? Do you have one that you like in particular? Is there a difference between a guitar that's a couple $100 and the guitars sometimes they're like $10,000? Can you tell me something about that?
Well, listen, a great player can make a $200 guitar sound great, and a novice player can make a $10,000 guitar sound lousy. So bottom line is I have about 15 guitars. I've got 5 or 6 acoustics. I've still got the acoustic guitar that I had in Rochester before the Rascals that my dad bought me.
Well, that's cool.
I still have that. I gave it to Felix back in the day when we first started recording Atlantic, and I gave it to him as a gift because I had a whole bunch of new guitars. And about 7-8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, he had a fire in his house.
Ooh.
And destroyed everything in his house. And I said, how about my guitar? He said, no, somehow that survived. And I told him a story about my father giving me the guitar. So he said, well, I'll give it back to you. I said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. You give me that guitar and I'll buy you a Fender Stratocaster. And that's what we did.
So, the other thing we haven't gotten into is that the circles that you traveled in back then, I mean, you must admit everybody who is anybody in in the music business, because you attained, the Rascals attained this pinnacle in the music business back when. I mean, how many top songs did you have?
We had 17 hit records in a row.
That's amazing.
The 4 number ones, 10 top 10, and the rest were top 40.
I've always said, I said in the last show,
without a miss.
Yeah, I really do believe that you wove your way into American culture, and I think people know the music, but they don't necessarily know it's the Rascals, which gives me a lot of joy with a program like this, because we're educating people to this wonderful music that you guys produced, and the fact that you consider yourself a Rochester guy, and that's great.
Always be my hometown.
Yeah,
I am a Rochester hometown, and on Monday I'll be a Red Wing.
Well, and like I said in the last show, on your Wikipedia page, you're wearing a Red Wings hat. Well, we're going to give you a hat too, so you get a couple of things. One of the things least we can do is give you a hat, and the thing about Rochester is I've relocated here from. I'm originally from Long Island. Went down to I lived in Charlotte for a while and came back up here. Is that this place is great. It's a great place to live. I happen to be a fan of Rochester with all the things that we have going for us. And unfortunately, sometimes that people maybe from downstate don't understand how nice this place is. And for somebody like you to say this is home means a lot to people in Rochester. So.
You know, I have a lot of friends in Rochester. My friend from the 4th grade, George Sokolsky, who I speak to once a month. Pat, who I speak to practically daily.
Mm-hmm.
I get the weather forecast. I find out what the Red Wings. I find out what he did in his softball game.
You know, I have to tell you, and God's honest truth, Gene, is that I'll call you. And, because, we're planning the day, you coming up here for Gene Cornish Day. And you'll tell me something, and I'll call Pat. And Pat will say immediately, so, Gene called me already about that. It's like you have a hotline. It's like the Russia hotline they used to have years ago, the red phone. Like all of a sudden, he knows exactly what I talked to you about, like 3 seconds after I did.
Well, Pat and I share a lot of information about home, about family.
Yeah.
About her. Pat's mom used to give up watching TV on Thursdays because we rehearsed downstairs in his basement. Yeah. Remember those days, Patty?
Sure do.
All right, listen, I'm going to have to get off.
Yeah, okay. Great talking to you. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. We'll be here next week, 10 to 11 Saturday on News Radio M 1180. But you can always get past shows on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com, as YouTubes, or any place you get your iHeart podcasts. Well, thanks for watching this YouTube. If you liked it, please like and share.